Welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while, but our 1993 Mustang GT convertible is finally all painted, along with all the rest of its parts. So let's start throwing it together and see how far we can get.
We'll start throwing our trunk back together. We'll put our license plate lights back in that are located in the trunk. I don't know that I really needed to take these out, but the bulbs are burned out, so we're going to have to replace those anyway. So I guess I had to take them out for that. Put the wires in there and screw them into our little lights and drop them down in there. Screw them in. And then we can put our trunk lock in. Put our first of many lock retaining clips in here. Make sure that the tabs are lined up with the notches in the back of the lock. And push it in there. These clips don't always like to fully engage, so we'll grab our electric lock retaining clip hammer and tap it in there. Still doesn't go all the way in, so a little more force. Get that nice click that we were looking for. And then we'll go ahead and put a rivet in there because Ford really wanted to make sure this thing was never coming out again. Now we're going to put in our lock reinforcement bracket. And another retaining clip. Because Ford really wanted that lock to stay in there. And of course this retaining clip goes in just about as easy as the other one. We did get it to clip in there. And we got a J-nut that fell down. Clip that back in. And then we're going to go do something else because I have attention deficit disorder. So we're going to go put the moldings back on our cowl. We have to slide them underneath the A-pillar trim. Not normally, but that's not how it's supposed to go together, but I didn't want to take that A-pillar trim off. So just slide the end under there and then just clip the tabs into the clips at the bottom of the windshield. And we'll clip our other side in there. We'll use the belt molding installation tool for that. Now we can put our cowl screen in. Make sure we hook up our washer hose. Drop it down in there. Put our screws in very carefully. We don't want to over tighten these. That plastic is just waiting to crack. And we'll just run them in there slowly. Felt like pushing my limits on that one. And now Captain ADD is back to the trunk again. We'll plug in our electric latch and stuff it in there. That one lock reinforcement bracket actually has a screw that holds the top of this in. Put that in there. And then the two that hold it down to the deck lid. And tighten everything up. Make sure we got the lever for the lock in there. And we're all good. Now we can put this little filler panel in here. A bunch of screws. There are some plastic shims underneath it, but they all stayed there, so I'm just putting it right back where it was. You can shim it out to close the gap up if you need to. And then we can put the molding on top of it. It also holds it in. It's got a bunch of studs on the back of it. Goes through that other piece. And there's a couple nuts on the bottom. And they happen to be 9mm, so if you ever had that 9mm socket that you never used, well, you find a place for it. We're slowly going to tighten them up and hopefully not break them. The top is slowly creeping down. I kind of had it halfway up. That way, if it's all the way up, there's no room in there. If it's all the way down, well, there's no room in there either, as you can see. But I didn't feel like going up to put it back up again. So we're just going to work around it. We can throw our gas door on here. Put our bolts in. Just going to snug them up. There is some adjustment on there. And we'll check all of our gaps. Yeah, it's not quite right, so we'll move it around a little bit. Just gonna go back on the top a little bit. Snug it up again. And it's even all the way around. So now we can tighten it down to manufacturer specs. And we can unwrap our Christmas present. Once upon a time when I used to paint, I used to think the worst part was masking everything off. And that's the part I really didn't like, so I stopped painting. Now I don't even like unmasking the cars anymore. So I guess I'm really done with painting. Now we're going to install our headlights. Just to upset the purists that probably want me to use the OEMs. And I did have enough lights to complete a set, but they were all foggy. So we're just going to go with the Shanghai Specials. They're probably just as bright as the originals, if not brighter. And they're not all foggy, so they're good enough for me. Just slide in on the studs. And then put the nuts on the back. You can put these in afterwards, but it's a lot easier to put them in before you put the bumper on. We'll head over to the other side. Tighten these down to manufacturer specs. And one last one. So the door locks weren't working, and I just naturally assumed, being a Fox body, that it was probably door lock actuators. Until I found this. Somebody's been here before. Yes, you are seeing what you think you were seeing. That is a trailer harness with our 4 trailer wire colors. I don't know if they had an alarm in there and they just ran this wire into the alarm box, but we're going to take it out of here. They had everything crimped together, and I could have just connected the ends of the lead inside there, but rather than using all those other wires, we're just going to take them all out of there. And they didn't have heat shrink connectors on there, so I put the heat shrink connectors on there. I'm sure that everyone's still going to tell me I did it wrong, but oh well. It's better than what was on there. Now we're going to put our brackets on, our new Fender. These are for our GT ground effects. I'm going to start the first rivet. And we go ahead and finish up the other rivet. Now that we got everything lined up. And one last one. And bracket in the back. A little too much paint on that hole, I guess. Pop those in there. And now we're going to head to the back and put some more rivets in. Because Ford was a big fan of rivets. We had to do a little repair. We had to epoxy that tab back on there that was broken, and the very end of it. That little edge goes underneath the trunk hinge, so hopefully you're not going to see it. Now we need to get it in here without breaking that tab off again. They kind of go into different angles. Some go in from the side and a couple go in from the top. That one that was broken kind of goes right in between. So I'm going to start there. Hopefully I won't break it again. Very carefully. Just waiting for that crack. You guys always say you don't get to see me struggle enough, so here you go. I'm struggling. A little bit more. Takes a little patience not to break that. But we got it in there. Now we just got to get it all the way down. The rest of them are in there. We're good. No casualties. Now we can put all of our nuts on the bottom and tighten it down. Guess I shouldn't have said no casualties yet. We could still break them with a wrench. And there's one screw that holds the front of it in. And we have a bit of forbidden black licorice. The back of our trunk hinge here. It's butyl tape, or dum-dum. I'm just going to put it around the hole. There's actually 2 holes. Just kind of make a figure 8 around them. Doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to seal in there nice and thick. And then when we put the hinge in there, it's going to squish everything out and hopefully seal it up. Hopefully. You gotta draw it in there slowly because that hinge actually will break until that squishes that butyl tape out. And in case you're wondering, that is the worst tasting black licorice ever. We got our hinge all the way down there. It's bottomed out. So now we can put the cover on it. And there's 2 screws that come up from the bottom. We'll put those in there. Pull that little cover on. And we're all good. We'll head over the other side and put our little weather stripping underneath our molding. Just going to use our single shot riveter. I didn't feel like starting up the compressors to use the assault riveter, so we're just going to do it by hand. Nobody needs an assault riveter. We'll clip our hockey stick molding in here. Hopefully not break the studs off. They weren't broken yet. Start the nuts on the bottom. And I think we're safe. Didn't break anything. As long as I don't over tighten them. And I'm very meticulous about torque specs, so put our 1 screw in there. And there's 1 more screw up in the front. A ratcheting wrench with an angle head works perfect in there. Put our butyl tape around our trunk hinge. So now we can drop our trunk hinge in here. Squish it down in there. And then tighten it up slowly. Go ahead and put our cap on. And put the screws in the bottom of our cap. We were missing 1 screw in the bottom of this cap. I just went over and took it out of our parts car. So I had a spare. We'll put our lower molding on our quarter. We had this off so we could paint our quarter, and we ended up painting all of the moldings because they were all faded out. A couple Phillips screws in the wheel opening, and a couple of nuts that go in the back. Putting those down. And maybe we'll get our ratchet back. Now up to the front of the car. Drop our antenna in here, the base. Screw it in there. Snug it up. And we'll put our cap on there. We'll plug it in later. You guessed it, back to the back of the car now. We'll put this quarter molding on, same as the other one. Put our screws in our wheel opening. And the nuts on the inside is a little bit more of a challenge on this one because we have the filler neck in our way. So we need an extension to get in there. That's what that little drain tube hanging out the back is. That's where the gas goes if you spill it in there. We're going to put our door handles in here so we can stop reaching in to open the door. Get the rod lined up. Start our rivets. You got the back one in there just holding it in place. Nothing worse than breaking the rivet off in there and it's not lined up. Go back to the back one, tighten that one up. And hopefully we don't end up smashing the freshly painted door with the rivet gun. Decided to try my luck. The assault riveter definitely is better here. So if you pull out while you're breaking the rivet off, you have less of a chance of smashing the side of the car. Now we can throw our front bumper on. Day 1594 of ordering a pizza and not getting a pizza. But I did get the pizza girl to help me put the bumper up here. The bottom of the bumper has to slide over the fog light bracket, and we have to line up all those studs with the hole in the fender. Put one screw in the bracket up top just to keep the bumper from falling on the floor. We'll tighten the rest of them up later. And now while she's here, the real reason she's here is to help me put the deck lid on. This really is a two-person job because those hinges are on the outside and I don't want to scratch that freshly painted deck lid, which has to be painted off the car unless you're going to mask off around the hinges. Get everything started, tighten it up. Now we can put our brackets in for our trunk springs. They just have little studs on the end of them. Lower it down to our trunk springs and then put the nuts on there. Snug them up with a wrench. Move everything around and see how it fits. Should fit. I only took it off to paint it. Didn't do any work back here. Look at the pizza girl inspecting those trunk gaps. And everything looked good. Nothing to move around. So we'll throw our rear bumper on there. Sent the pizza girl on to deliver the rest of her pizzas that were getting cold. Line up all the studs for our rear bumper. And then we can start putting all of our nuts on our bumper. You know this car is old. They actually use fasteners to hold the bumper on. This is long before the days of snap-together cars. Kind of prefer these. Takes a little longer to put it together, but you know it's on there, and it stays on there. A couple push pins in the bottom. I'll allow it. And there's a couple nuts to put on the studs that go through the molding on the bottom of our quarter. These are on the outside. Make sure everything's lined up. And tighten it all up at the top. Now we can plug our deck lid in. And we got to put our ground wire in. Click. And get our light out of here. We'll put our door lock in. Push it in there. It's our door lock installation tool. We'll put the little retainer in there. These don't like to go in any better than the trunk one. Seems like it's in, but haven't got that reassuring click yet. We go ahead and put our door handle on. And it did start up the compressors so that I can use the assault riveter and hopefully not destroy the side of the car. There we go. And our door handle works like most Mustang door handles do. Not at all. That's how they usually end up broken, because they don't unlatch until you pull to the very top, and then they crack. Put our mirror back on. Since our window's down, we can only get to the front stud with the impact, but we can do the rear one with the wrench. I didn't feel like putting the window up. Now we're going to fix our door handle before it ends up broken. And I believe that the pizza girl reported me, so now the supervisor is here inspecting my work. So we're going to use a zip tie. Here's our problem. There's just too much play in there. So we use a zip tie to take up some of that play. So it pushes down on the zip tie. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Let's see if it was worth it. And because we took up that space, the handle releases about halfway up instead of all the way at the top. Hopefully that'll keep it from breaking. And we can go ahead and throw some cavity wax down in this bottom seam. This door isn't rotted out yet. Let's make sure it stays that way. When you guys always ask what kind of wax do I use, this is TransStar, not a sponsor. Amber rust-proofing wax. It's a little bit runnier than the 3M stuff that I use, which is perfect because you just spray it in there and then it runs down in that seam and then it thickens up. All we're trying to do is fill in that seam so that none of the water and salt and debris falls down in there. It just falls on top of it. Now we can go ahead and throw our door panel on here. Pull our switches through here before we forget about them. Our door lock lined up. Push it down into place. Use the belt molding installation tool. And clip the rest of our door panel in. Make sure our door locks still work. And put the cover around our handle. And put the screw in there very carefully. Those do like to split. And put our armrest in. A couple tabs on the bottom that slide into the door. And a couple screws. We'll put our cover on our switches. Some screws that come in from the back. Slide it down into our armrest. And one screw in the top. One more screw in the back that I forgot. And we got a little time for a staring contest with the supervisor. I win. Screw up in the front. Not sure if that one belongs there, but there was one in there, so I put it back in. There was already a hole in the door panel if it doesn't belong there. Make sure our window works. Makes plenty of noise, just like it did from the factory. And it goes up and down. What else could you ask for?
Now, to the untrained eye, it might look like I'm jumping all over the place and just putting random parts together, but I can assure you that is exactly what I'm doing. And the reason for that is I'm just taking stuff out of the box the way I packed it in the box, which was more for storage than reassembly. So if it doesn't matter, I take it out, put it on the car. If it's something that has to go on before something else, it gets put to the side and then I put it on. But yeah, I'm basically just picking stuff out of the box and throwing it on the car in the order that it's in the box. So keeps it interesting, at least for me.
Now we're going to pull our rear seat out of here. We got some work to do behind it. Just push the bottom back and it unclips. It's supposed to anyway. Push the seatbelt through. The bottom of it was stuck to the floor. I need to pull it back down. All the way in the corners, there's a couple bolts. Spin those out of there. Unlatch the back of it. And pull it out of here. Now we can see our pump motor for our convertible top. There's a little rubber plug in the top of it. It's more like plastic now. It's not as soft and pliable as it once was, so we're going to have to gently remove it so we don't rip it in half. After 30 years, it seems that the seals might have leaked a little bit of fluid out of here. That's why it works so slow. So we're going to top it off with just a little ATF. Put a towel under there because I don't want to make a mess. It upsets the clean freaks. We're just going to fill it up until it's level with the bottom of the fill hole. And we'll use the top a couple times and get the air out of the system. It'll all bleed back out of here. Put our cap back in. It pushes right in. It doesn't come out so easy. We didn't even make a mess. So now we're going to work the top a couple times. You can see how slow it goes. It's got the air in there, and as soon as it works the air out, it starts really moving. Kind of had to help it before. And watch your fingers as it violently slams down. Give a little help at the beginning when it goes back up. Otherwise it'll actually break that metal frame. They pretty much did that from the factory. Just a little shove gives it the ability to hinge where it's supposed to hinge. And now we're going to let that sit, or let all the air work its way up to the pump, and we'll check and make sure that it's topped off. And in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and pull our trim panel off of our quarter here so that we can make our manual power window a power window. Disconnect our speaker. And we're just going to set this over here. I'm not going to take the seatbelt out. Unbolt this top plate for the seatbelt and let the seatbelt fall forward. Guess I am going to take it out. Now we can unbolt our window motor. Hopefully not lose any screws in Narnia. Go ahead and unplug it. And our new one didn't come with this little bracket, so we're going to have to use the bracket off of our old one. Match it up, make sure it looks the same. And we'll put our bracket back on our new one. Tighten the bolts down to manufacturer specs. And we're ready to install it in our regulator. And it won't go all the way in because our window is all the way up. So the gears won't line up. So we're just going to manually roll the gears back a little bit so we can get our motor to line up. Doesn't have to go far, just it can't be all the way at the top. And everything slides right in. Now we can bolt it in. Run our wire through this little splash shield or sound deadening, whatever it is. And plug it in. Now we have to make sure it works. It goes down, but that was never the problem. And it goes up. So we now have a power window. Alright, we tested it enough anymore and we're probably going to break it. So here's our old window motor. Here's this wasn't the first time.
Somebody's been here before.
Put our water barrier back up there. And we can put our seatbelt back in. Bolt it into the floor. And a couple bolts in the top. And we put our quarter trim back in there. Plug in our speaker. And set it up there. Tuck it underneath the sill plate. it all lined up so we can put all of our screws in. And we killed enough time. Let's go check on our convertible top. I believe I have upset it. It's hissing at me. We definitely got some air that worked its way up there. A little pressure in there. Slowly going to work this cap out of here so we don't break it since we pushed our luck the first time. Our little bib in there. And we're going to top it off. Hopefully for the last time. Didn't see anything leaking. I'm just going to go with the fact that it's been 30 years. Probably seeps a little over time from all the seals. Put our little cap in there. Made a little bit more of a mess this time. Can't believe you didn't wash all that out of there. Detail that whole area behind the seat. I'll try our top one more time, make sure it works. And we'll keep it from sliding down on us. A little help at the beginning. And once it folds, everything's good. Well, that was an easy fix. If you just forget about the fact that we had to dig the back seat out to get to it. Now we can go ahead and throw our back seat back in here since we're done. Put our seatbelts on the right side of the seat there. See, clean freaks? No need to clean everything. It's all gone now. Put our bolts back on the bottom. And we put the bottom of our seat in. Stuff it back in there. And push our seatbelt buckles through. And we're going to connect them. That way they won't fall through there. Nothing worse than getting the seat in there and realizing that they fell back down underneath. Slide it in there. Push it back to clip it in to the bracket on the bottom. Same thing on the other side. Just use the rear seat installation tool. Make sure it's all the way in there. We're all good. Now we have to recharge our AC system so we can blast the air conditioning with the top down. We need to make up for all the Tesla drivers saving the planet. We'll vacuum the system down first. Make sure there's no leaks. Good sign, it pulled it into a vacuum. So now we can go ahead and charge it. And we have a little problem. The system took a charge, but it's actually not working. We're going to see if our compressor clutch is commanded on. So we have a ground, but we have no wattage in the cottage. Switch our test light over to ground and double check that we really don't have any power here, and we don't. So likely we don't have a bad compressor. We'll go check this switch back here. Power coming in. Got a little pocket screwdriver. We'll use our test light and a screwdriver. We'll jump it and see if our compressor engages. And it does. Well, that was easy. We got a bad switch. We know the system's full. We just filled it up. We'll go ahead and change our pressure switch. We had one off of our parts car. Not that they're expensive, but it was closer than Napa was, so there is a valve inside, so we don't have to pump the system down. We can just change this out. Spin the old one off. Looks the same. Nothing's leaking out of there. We'll spin the new one on. We'll risk that O-ring. It'll be fine. We'll just tighten it a little tighter. And that Rogue vacuum line used to go to the secondary air injection. But since we, well, that fell off earlier, and we don't need it anymore, so it just kind of hangs out there. Get everything plugged in, and our compressor is compressing. So we have air conditioning once again. Now we gotta check and make sure it's cool inside the car, so we'll use our 5-fingered thermometer. We're all good. Then we go ahead and throw our belt on. We had our temporary belt that we got out of the trunk when we bought the car, but I decided to splurge and get a brand new shiny one. Put it around all the pulleys. Lift up on the tensioner and slide it under. Brand new shiny belt. I don't want to get deducted points at the car show for my non-OEM prop rod holder, so I did get a factory one. Balled up masking tape from Mr. Spotty's uncle just wasn't going to cut it. And the supervisor didn't like it. Push the back of it in there, actually the front. I'm not getting that reassuring click that I want, but it seems like it's in there. Sure it holds our prop rod. It looks good. And our hood even closes. Now we have to get some of the non-accident related mechanical work done underneath this thing. So we had to put it up on a lift. And since we don't have a lift anymore, we just had to bring it over to a fellow YouTuber who had a lift and let me borrow it so we could get all this stuff done without a struggle. We're just going to skim through this work. If you want to see it in more detail, there's a link up above in the corner that'll take you to the video of all the work that we did over at Mike's shop. So if you want to go check that video out, go say thanks, maybe subscribe to his channel because he really did help me out. We're just going to change the exhaust that's all rotted out and fix a couple leaks. Yes, the exhaust really is that rotted out. I am nowhere near that strong. In the pile. Pry this side off of its rubber mounts and beat the pipe off of the other pipe and fold it in half. The manual said to do. And then stuff it over the axle. Disconnect our oxygen sensors and disconnect our cats from our manifold and pull our H pipe out of here. And that's what we're doing in here. All that RTV silicone, that's not supposed to be on that trans dipstick tube. There's a little rubber O-ring in there that gets brittle and cracks, and then they leak. Pretty bad. So we have to break the bolt that goes through the bell housing loose because it also holds the trans dipstick tube. Pull the bolt out of there. We can tear all that RTV silicone that hasn't cracked and pull that dipstick tube out. Clean all that off of there and replace our O-ring. Now we're going to drop the rear trans cross member. Pull one bolt out of it and pull it down. Then you take it all the way out, let it hang. And since we're here, we're going to pull our trans band down. We're going to go ahead and change our trans filter. Just a little extra insurance. I don't know when the last time it was done, if it was ever done. Here comes the mess. I'm guessing it was done before, at least once. That's not a factory gasket, and that fluid is pretty clean. And bolt the filter and pull that down. Slap our new one up there. Bolt it back in. Stuff our trans dipstick tube back up there. Complete with new O-ring and less RTV. And we'll put our bolt back in our bell housing. And our trans pan's ready to go back up there. We put all the bolts through the gasket to hold the gasket in place and hold all the bolts in. And now we're just going to run it in there with our electric torque wrench. Go ahead and put our cross member back up here. Stuff our bolt through. Put the trans down. And tighten everything up. And go ahead and throw our H-pipe back up there. We have to line it up with the manifolds and the rubber hangers all at the same time. Put the collars up there. And then bolt everything in. Plug in our oxygen sensor. Bolt the other side in and plug in that oxygen sensor. Then we can start throwing our exhaust up here. We got our front pipes. And we got our mufflers. And our tailpipe. Go to the other side. Put our muffler up there. And our tailpipe. Put all our hangers on there and put them back up there. Tighten up all of our clamps. Give it a wiggle. And we'll go ahead and top off our trans fluid.
So we've gone just about as far as we're going to go for today on our Mustang. We still have a lot more to put together before we get it out on the road. Next time we come back, we should have this thing all finished up. It almost feels wrong to actually finish a Mustang on this channel, so if we come back, we might have this back out on the road. But if we don't, just think of all the crowds that will be saved if this car never sees the road again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.